Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the Legion 99 podcast, your source for the latest tactics, news, battle reports, hobby talk, and general Legion chatter. All right. Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Legion 99. I'm Nick. I'm here with Mike, and we have two special guests. We have Richard Lavery of Crit to Block, down south guy, fresh from PAX, the pseudo runner-up. And then my good buddy Chris Lewis representing hanging out in Bright Tree Village right now, if you're watching the video. How are you guys doing?
Great.
Doing all right.
Yep. We were PAX was last weekend. You can still hear it in my voice a little bit, I think. A little nasally. All good. We heard from Mike already on Scoundrels. That rapscallion.
I'm sorry I cheated on you, Nick.
It's okay, man. It's okay. That's why I brought you back to the network, so that you could go on the other podcast and talk.
You've revealed my secrets.
Anyway, we got stuff to talk about. We got some news before we get into PAX debrief, and we get a little. Mike already talked a little bit about PAX. He doesn't love doing battle reports, but I'll let Chris and Richard talk a lot because they played 6 games. They also happen to play each other. Round 5, basically the start of the top cut, sort of. We did full Swiss, so there was no cut, which unfortunately meant that Richard was not the runner-up after Swiss. It happens. I'm definitely doing a different format for next year, so similar but different. What we learned a lot. There were a lot of things that that I didn't like as the TO, which is mostly PAX issues. Overall, I think the event went really well. But
you didn't like the people picking up your terrain?
I didn't like no, and I also found out that at one point on Sunday is the family day. There's a lot of families there. And I guess somebody some kid was trying to pick up minis, which is a thing that happens every year apparently. They don't know what they're looking at. They assume everybody walks by. They assume because the vendors let everybody touch everything that this is also a thing here. Also, the enforcers trying to make everybody eat against a wall was crazy. But you had to be there. But so news, Geonosians. We got the AMG preview article that LJ wrote. Not a whole lot of new stuff, but we did get the flip side of the Force Pike Warrior. It is an overrun attack. The dice are not very good. Overrun also does not work in the current rulebook because it requires a notch-based trooper or vehicle.
So technically, I was corrected on this a little bit. It does require a notched base, but the ruling is because it must overlap. And with the new movement rules, you pick up your guy and you put him at the end of the movement tool. You don't slide along anymore. So there is no overlap. The only time you slide is when there's a notched base.
Right.
So it doesn't explicitly require the notch, but it's the only way to get an overlap. So I'm sure that'll get fixed.
I'm excited for these guys. I was pretty not excited with the Sonic Cannon Warrior because he's kind of expensive. We all know that these guys are more expensive than Rebel Troopers and don't have any kind of defensive tech at all. Nothing they can't, it's not even they have nimble like Rebel Troopers. And it's only range 1 to 2. The Force Pike Warrior with the overrun is a lot more interesting with the fact that they get a free move every turn from the jump, so they can effectively move 3 times if they're not suppressed. But if they're suppressed, they're probably dead. So whatever. What do you guys think?
I think Geonosians are going to make a massive splash into the meta. With how careful many of the competitive players are, the ability to run an 11-act Geonosian list where 5 of your units can triple move, and you could hold those until late turn 4 out of range behind line of sight, and then get an additional speed. An additional jump move with Sun Fox card?
Yeah.
I think the objective play is going to really shake up the scene.
I tend to I tend to agree. When you can backload triple magna with 4 to 5 speed 3 objective grabbing units, and now your killers can just do what they do best at, and your opponent's going to have to focus on the people picking up the boxes, tapping the VAPs, etc. I think they're positioned to really change the way CIS plays. I don't think they'll do a lot of killing on their own, but I think they'll be annoying enough that everything else can do their job, which is probably what they're intended to do. You know, they're that harassing
are pitting things for better things to like, you know, get in there, like Magna Guards, stuff like that, Dooku. I don't think Sunfag is good at all. Like, it only his command card. His command card's really good because he gives free moves. But like what you're paying 90, I'm not really. It also depends on Death from Above. It needs to be cleared up a little bit. There's a lot of talk about that. Just like it's kind of vague how it works exactly. So like no one's sure. We got to see exactly what, you know.
I think that's the make or break for the Sonic cannon, because if Death from Above is really good and you just have to be higher than them, I think the cannon becomes much better. Right. It's still probably a little too expensive, but I think that's the only way it gets played.
Yeah.
More consistently.
I agree.
I mean, they can also harass really well, right? Like, can like jump in, shoot, and run away. Like,
right. Yeah. Like the old Snowtrooper, like move, shoot, move type deal.
Yeah. A speed 2 steady model, essentially.
Yeah. They're definitely going to be super flexible. I'm buying a whole bunch of them because I buy a whole lot of Legion stuff, and I think Geonosians are cool. So I inform my LGS that I would like to buy a lot of bug people. And I'm like, I mean, it's really interesting. You can fit a lot if you decided to take 6 Geonosian warriors with Force Pike, it's only 360 points. It's less than half your army. Like you can fit a lot after that. 3 Magnas, for instance. It's probably memey, but you know, I don't care. They also moved the release date up. It is not February 29th. It is the 3rd Friday in January. It's like the 20th or the 21st. So it's like the day before LVO and like a week before Gold Sprue. So I'm going to see if I can get a whole bunch of Geonosians assembled and painted before Gold Sprue. See if that's going to be my meme dream.
I think it'll be a little less meme than you think.
Probably. We'll see. It'll depend on the terrain, I guess.
That's an unfair advantage, but we all know how that's going.
I knew. Hey, I don't set up all the tables. I didn't set up any of the tables for Gold Sprue.
It's because you were drunk.
Yes.
Nick's just going to make more tables with like better height so he can actually like get more advantages.
Just like height 3. We're going to add the height 3 building.
The other thing to keep in mind about the Geonosians is they count as your core tax too.
Yep.
So even if you're just taking 3 purely for the objective play, the rest of those points are for actual mattering units. You know, the things you want to put in there, your special forces, your supports. So I mean, there's a lot of good stuff you can put in there for the cheap Geonosians. Of course, B1s are also cheap, but I think the objective play of Geonosians is worth a lot more than just naked B1.
Yeah, I agree with that. They're a little bit more, but
going off of that, I saw somebody post a list that was like a snail tank B2s and then 3 naked Geonosians just to, you know, use their thumbs. It's a lot of firepower in the rest of the
thumbs.
Stuff.
They're good thumbs. Like, you know, being able to like move, hit your VAP turn 1. Like that's really good if you want to just pressure with the rest of your army, things like that. Just a swarm of them going like toward a center box is interesting because like they're gonna like whoever grabs it is not gonna live, but like they might be able to move it like once or twice, and then something else can move. So you just got to time your jump before you pick up, you know, whatever objective you're carrying. But they're definitely interesting. I don't think CIS needs help. Like they have been the most underrepresented faction across like events recently. They're not doing super well when they get to it, when people do bring them to events. Like I think there were only 5 or 6 separatist players at PAX total before drops and everything.
I got second at Crucible, sir.
You did get second at Crucible, but you're you. Duh. Yeah, fair. But like, how many Magnas did you take?
3.
He took all the Magnas. It's interesting because I was just saying to somebody earlier that like B1 just are not good right now. So Geonosians are probably they're at least more interesting. They're only a little bit more expensive naked, so you don't have to worry about AI. So it's interesting. I'll be excited to try and hopefully get a whole bunch in my hands before Gold Sprue and get them painted up and bring a whole bug army. That's what we're here for. Maybe a B2, some Magnas. Fun times.
Yeah. Should we get into the meat of the episode today, though? Or I should say the fur of the episode.
The fur of the episode. Real quick though, we the Adepticon packet, the Adepticon event schedule released, and the world's format is pretty brutal. So last year, day one at Worlds, all 2-1s advanced, which is fine. You know, it afforded you, if you got a loss round one, you were still in it. If you got your 2 wins, your first 2 games like I did, then the third game didn't matter as much because it just reset the next day anyway. This is brutal to travel for people who are traveling far away, spending a lot of money for half of them to be eliminated immediately, essentially from contention. It's pretty brutal. Any thoughts?
I'm going to reserve judgment until it's officially official, because as of right now, we just essentially have screen caps of the ticket sales and some of the player packet. But I feel bad for people traveling from out of the country. You know, it's Worlds, so if you need to win, you need to win. I appreciate the cutthroat nature of it. With the way that Legion is slightly rock, paper, scissors at times, I do think X and 1s advancing is really good to make sure that you get a good sample size of players that actually played well and didn't just get unlucky for a game. But I really just feel bad for people coming from like Australia and all the German contingent who had to play mirror matches with their countrymen round 1 last year. And I guess you didn't really need to fly 3,000 miles to play your buddy at the local store. But I'm not a huge fan, but if that's what needs to be done so that they can actually put the event on, we can adapt.
Survive.
Put on my Robert Downey Jr. face.
You've seen that movie, that's right.
I have. It's one of the few that I have.
All right. Well,
do you guys have any thoughts?
Yeah.
Can't ignore half of our cast.
Oh, no.
I mean, I personally, when I first heard it, I thought it was okay. The idea of single elims, like if you look at basically a playoffs bracket, is effectively single elims. That's kind of what Worlds gets to, you know, it's the playoffs of Legion in my mind. But the points you guys are making about the travel, I didn't factor that in to some of my initial thoughts on it. And you're right, there, especially for anyone traveling outside the United States, even people traveling inside the United States, it's a lot of money to put on the line to maybe play one game and be out. And there's a lot else going on at Adepticon. There's other events and such, but you know, not everyone wants to be doing that either. So it's a bit more negative than I think my initial thoughts on the matter were.
Yeah, I'll probably need to like grab a ticket for something another day because like it's like I'm gonna, you know, you get in there Thursday or something like that, and then like you play 3 games Friday and then that's it. Like, what are you gonna do Saturday and Sunday? Like, I was okay. I think me and Mike played a doubles game on Sunday or something like that, and it was an experience. I appreciate Ryan and always being the king of doubles, but yeah, I'll probably need to look and see what I can grab on Saturday, because like I'm not gonna assume that I'm gonna win 3 games on Friday. Worlds is tough. Like
only 32 people are. Right.
It's like I won my first 2 this past year, and then I lost to Chris Beezer. And it was like, yeah, I got back-to-back double Dark Troopers. It was brutal. But like the third game didn't matter. Like we both set up as like, hey, let's just have fun and roll dice. He had more fun than I did. But you know, it was another game against double Dark Troopers. It's rough knowing that like you have to stay locked in the whole time. It is Worlds, so I get the high level of competition that's expected. It is disappointing the difference between last year and this year, though. You know. What are you gonna do? I'll still go.
Yeah.
I
So
think
you're,
it might
you're gonna
also
play.
change. I think it might change some mindsets in terms of like how you want to build your list and how you want to play. Because obviously you don't want to go for that draw and knock yourselves both out. So
Right.
Speaking of the list changes, it's actually making me consider do more of a skew. Because if you're going to play something that's an all-rounder, if you run into a skew, you're probably not going to beat it 2 or 3 times in a row, because you're going to have to hope your opponent makes a mistake, and at that level of competition, doesn't happen too often, especially not when you're talking about people that have 30 plus reps with their lists. So I might shift some of the things I was doing or things I was planning to lean into more of a, I don't want to say hit W, but more of a, I'm going to make something happen right away and see if you can deal with it. But
Man after my own heart.
I was going to say, you guys are a little inspirational in that part.
Yeah. So
I have 6 Wookiees, so it'll be fun.
So respectively here, Chris, you went 4-2. Richard, you went 5-1, ultimately losing to Sam in the final game. How was PAX for you guys? Was it great? Was it all you hoped and dreamed it would be?
the Wookiees can go first.
The Wookiees can go first.
Thank you. Yeah, PAX was wonderful and amazing. I mean, the tournament all around fantastic. Thank you again, Nick. Love your tables. Everything was great. Honestly, the Wookiees did better than I was expecting. I tested them for a while. They did all right, even well. But they really shone this weekend, and objective decks really make a giant difference depending on what you're playing. And that ability to be red player and get that last veto, or say no, I need to play my objective deck, really makes a 3-point bid, or any bid, in my opinion, really important, especially in today's meta of how many people are running 800 points exactly.
Yeah, 3-point bid is kind of big. It seems like now, like that's gonna get you blue like more than half the time, I think.
Which is wild, given that this time last year, a 16-point bid was pretty average.
We've come a far away from the Blizzard bidding meta.
We really have. We really have.
So your list, the fast and the furriest, 797 8-ax. Chewy with, this is obviously the the Kasshyk Defenders Battle Force, is that what it's called? Or
yes.
Yeah, Kasshyk Defenders. Chewy with tenacity and recon intel, 5 Wookiee warriors with the battle shield and recon intel, and then 2 Kasshyk Defender Wookiees. Those are the ones that shoot good. The bowcaster and targeting scopes. A lot of recon intel on your dudes who want to charge in, and then targeting scopes is very good in that dice pool that is like a whole bunch of white dice.
Yes,
with Pierce and Sharpshooter. So do you want
to walk us through how it functions?
Sure. So basically the idea is to blitz your opponent. Don't give them time to think, force them to always be reacting. In looking at today's meta, looking at the lists that are popular, looking at the objectives that are popular, there's a lot of very careful play out there where each side is looking to pick one activation and then retreat after completing their objectives. And that's not the style I like to play. I like to get in your face, be there as quickly as possible, and force you to respond to what I'm doing. And so the idea is to get the Battle Shield Wookiees into melee with whatever the most valuable shooting targets are by the end of 2 or top of turn 3, and tie them up and just sit there and be an absolute nuisance to everyone. Then whatever is not tied down in melee is being picked apart by sharpshooter bowcasters. And that Pierce, 8 dice plus rerolling 3, because you're not finding 8 pieces of paint on 7 white, even with surge hit. You're usually landing at least a crit, and then you've got Pierce 1, so you're doing at least 1 wound, times 2, 3 if Chewbacca's in there doing something. And so the 3 of them are basically cleaning up whatever isn't engaged with the melee Wookiees. You're going to lose Wookiees on the way in, but if you can get 3 melee Wookiees into their lines and start tying things up, you've got a pretty good shot from what I've experienced.
I was gonna say you've got a lot of Wookiees, so you can afford to lose a few before. And it's kind of like it's so many wounds, right? It's just like, and then like you and Chris played against each other round 5, and it was like I looked at you guys setting up because you guys set up pretty quickly. But like there's just so many models on Chris's side, and then yours just actually has like way more wounds than his. Like it was pretty wild to see. It was funny that like you guys ended up getting paired together that round because it was almost like a mirror, so to speak, which is like and then the other top 4 match was Dashes and Sam, and they were sort of like, you know, Anakin versus Yoda, so we've all seen that a million times. I kept walking by, and it's just like it happened really quickly. It was just like all of a sudden, like an hour or so in, and it was like there were just not a lot of models on the table anymore. This table that had so many now was reduced to so few so quickly because both these lists kind of operate similarly. In a vacuum, they kind of want to do something similar. So Chris, it's interesting because I guess I didn't start like talking Legion with you till a little over a year ago, maybe a year and a half ago. And you pretty much were just an Empire player. I don't remember what you played at PAX last year, but like the last like 6 months or so, you were playing a Dark Trooper list, Imperial Remnant with like a Dark Trooper or 2 Dark Troopers. And then you got your Worlds invite. And then you were like, I want to try Ewoks. So he borrowed my Ewoks at a little store championship we had. And he was like, that was fun. And then he messaged me like a week later and he's like, I kind of think I want to play Ewoks at PAX. I was like, you can borrow my Ewoks again. That's fine. So, so was your interest initially in Ewoks just like as a meme? Like, I want to try this because like I have, you know, Nick's just going to let me borrow his Ewoks. He doesn't care. And then all of a sudden you kind of fell in love with it, which is like, it's the opposite type of list that you were used to running. Like we were running Empire, which is like, you know, they're designed to gunline a little bit. And the Dark Troopers and stuff. So what is it that you love so much about Bright Tree Village now that you own all your own Ewoks?
I do own my own Ewoks, so I no longer have to break yours.
It's okay.
They're spindly little guys.
Oh, they're so small. They're so small.
It did start off as kind of a joke. On that one Thursday where right before I went to Store Champs, I was like, you know, if I win this invite to Worlds, I'll play Ewoks. I thought they were fun when we played the one time. It didn't go as well for you, but
no,
they looked fun. And after seeing that 14 activation French list, I remember playing like 12 activation Empire list for fun, and I was like, you know, more activations. Let's just go crazy. And it kind of worked out a little bit at the local store champs with it. Only losing that one last game to Mike. But you know, it's just such a different play style than sitting back and shooting, or you also have the activations that you can just kind of bully people with activations and also, you know, push on objective play.
Yeah, for me, it's like I love the idea of Ewoks in the game because like it's Star Wars and it's like an important chapter in Star Wars. So it should be, I'm glad it's finally in the game. Activation spam is just not my play style. It's just not like something I prefer to do. So that's why it's like I've struggled. I really want to like Bright Tree Village, but like it's just not like, it doesn't like speak to me the way like Rebel Hero Hammer does, stuff like that, with like, you know, a lot, even though you can take a lot of characters in it, which is great. It's just, you know, maybe if I could take Operative Luke, I'd be a lot happier. Give me a lightsaber to go with my Pierce 1 Ewoks.
Chris, do you want to talk about the version that you did bring? Because there are a couple different styles of 12 plus Ewok.
Sure, I actually faced a 12 Ewok round 1. So I brought the 14 activation. I had C3PO, Han with Esteem Leader, Up Close and Personal, and Recon Intel. Logray with Improvise and Secret Ingredients. Wicket with Force Dwellers, Tenacity, and Situational Awareness. Chewbacca with Seize the Initiative and Recon Intel. 6 skirmishers, 3 which had axes, and 2 of those axes had called arms. And then 3 slingers, 1 with a trapper, so I could run log traps. It's definitely, I think some people definitely underestimate it a little bit. I don't think it's, high tier or anything like that, but you can, like I said, you can bully people a little bit.
There's a lot of value in like high activation lists that also have like high wound counts. And like they're 6-7 wounds each, but which isn't a lot because they don't surge. They don't, you know what I mean? Their save is really bad. But like it's still oftentimes not easy unless you have sharpshooter or fire support to take a 6 or 7 model unit off the table. They might take 5, but then you still have 1 or 2 models and you can just hide them. And you still have that activation. And that's sort of like something that like more experienced players know how valuable those like 2 wounds are on a unit. Like when I run strike teams, like if they're still around near the end of the game, they're going to be participating in intercept the transmissions and things like that. They're, you know what I mean? It's 2 wounds. It's an activation. It's important.
You have double the wounds in almost every single army. Even if you get like a skirmisher up to like a force user, they're only rolling like 5 die. Like they're not going to kill that full unit in that one swing.
Right.
It's very difficult to trade with something that you cannot one shot and played normally without, fire support, sharpshooter dice pools. It's almost impossible to one shot these guys.
Mm-hmm.
Do you guys want to talk a little? You've both mentioned that it plays a little bit of a different style, and kind of both of you have mentioned that you bully your opponent a little bit into making decisions that they don't want to do. Do you guys want to talk a little bit about some of the games that you did play over the weekend against different list archetypes and just kind of go through like a learning point or something significant that happened in the game? Because I know there was like 12 that you could pick from.
You want to go first this time, Chris?
Sure. Honestly, I would say the biggest learning is the last 2 games. Like against Wookiees, I kind of felt that was probably my worst of the 4 or the 3 matchups at the going into day 2. It's really hard to like. I can't trade with Wookiees either. Like people can't trade with Ewoks. I can't trade with Wookiees. I need to spend multiple activations just to remove, one unit of Wookiees. Like and most times when you attack a model or attack a unit, 3 wounds is going to kill 3 guys. But in case of Wookiees, it's going to kill 1 guy. It's not really that fun to play with. A lot of my learning is also just being kind of a newer tournament player. So like I didn't do any prep beforehand to look at what my opponent was playing. So I didn't realize that, melee Wookiees can shoot. So I got like 2 activations shut off the board right away. Like
you're to be fair, you're not the first person who's like said that exact thing. Like somebody said it to me once. I was like charging Wookiees at them, and I'm like, you know what? I'm just gonna move and shoot. And he's like, they can shoot. So it's
last time I played against Wookiees, he ran them into me and attacked. So it was like, all right, I'm just kind of going off of what I've previous played against.
Yeah.
And then definitely my last game against Kyle, like playing against somebody who's one of the best in the world at the game, like knowing about, maybe essentially my turn 0, I think was like my biggest, where deployment, I could have deployed a little bit better. Obviously had a bid at some point, maybe choosing which card for objective to use that would be better than necessarily playing intercept the transmissions for the 5th time in the tournament. So
was intercept the main objective that you tried to go for the event? Do you feel like that's something that your list excels at the most compared to others?
I don't think it necessarily excels at the most compared to everything else. Honestly, I think KP is probably a little bit better because KP, I can kind of hide my models for most of the rounds until we need to score, where intercept makes it more risky to get that middle objective and potentially lose guys. I think it just happened to be how the cards fell.
Gotcha. What's the rest of your deck, if you don't mind me asking? I'm assuming you have intercept, KP, and payload.
Yep, and breakthrough.
And breakthrough.
Yep.
Oh, right, 14.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Breakthrough might be the best if I get like a good deployment, just to place somewhere where I can run everyone and just hide them in that corner.
Did you play a lot of close deployments, or did you try to keep the armies kind of spread out?
Mostly close. I don't think anything got too spread out. I usually try to, at least the playstyle I've been doing is keep Wicket and like 2 skirmishers, like usually the axe with the charge, kind of as my harassers. So they're going to go up in the front line and harass, and with Han and Chewie kind of behind harassing. And then everything else kind of does the objective play. So
speaking
kind
of
the play
Chewie,
style.
how often were you using, if at all, were you using Guardian for the Ewoks?
Not for the Ewoks per se. A lot of people tried to go after Han.
Yeah, yeah.
So it was definitely,
he's your like
I thi-
reliable gun. You only have
It was-
like 2 guns
yeah.
on the list.
there was definitely a decent amount of like, instead of shooting at Ewoks, they would shoot at Han, so Chewie would take those wounds.
Chewie's so underrated in like just in like in the Rebel faction. He's so good. I was making a list with Chewie earlier. Yeah, he's also pretty good in Gara here. Is there anything you would like change about this list? Like if you could go back?
Yeah, I'd probably take a bid. I don't think I necessarily needed that 3rd axe, even though it was somewhat useful. A lot of times the skirmishers just died. So at least had like at least a 15-point bid. I have been messing around with potentially cutting Han for Leia, but definitely things to test.
Did you
Leia's
get any value out of the log traps?
I think only one of my games I got like good value out of log traps, where I killed a bus with it.
That's not
bad. Yeah,
it was right next to me, so I log trapped it.
I actually like didn't take log traps with me, like because I took Ewoks Crucible, like that was like the one tournament I played Ewoks in. I took them to Crucible, and I actually didn't take log traps because I just felt like it's so bad when there isn't like a dark trooper around, or like a heavy or like an armor piece that doesn't have like cover, because it's like once they have heavy cover, it's like, like it feels so bad, like attacking something with heavy cover and like not surging. You only really, you can get an aim from Logray and that's it. Like, because it happens at the start of the round before anything activates.
But it's also a free attack at range 4, right?
It's a free attack
when you don't have shooting. So ideally you could potentially remove 2 models or 1 with that pierce, but that's still 1 model versus you having almost double the amount of models.
I also had Leia too. So the choices were like, instead of Wicket, I had Leia basically. And I had like, I think I only had 12 acts and I had full commandos. I kind of like leaned into like the firepower I could take with commandos, Chewie and Han, a little bit less into like the spamming like Ewok activations. I see an argument for both. Like I said, it's the activation spam is not, when I saw the list that won that French qualifier, it was like 100 some people, and like the one undefeated at the end was the Ewok list with like 14 activations, and I'm like, God, that looks so boring to play. I was just like, it looks so boring to play. It's just, but like, you know, boring is effective sometimes. So
maybe I'm too aggressive with it, but I didn't think it was as boring.
Did okay.
It's definitely not slow to play as long as you're, realizing that you have a bunch of key pieces, but not every model is a key piece. So you can kind of burn activations to make your opponent, do stuff. Like, I don't need this one skirmisher to go. I'll move him.
And that can change game to game. And I think that's one of the things that comes with learning the list is some games Han might be your piece that doesn't really matter. But if you can throw him out there and make your opponent waste time, your skirmishers can close in and you can tarp it what you need to. Other times you need his Pierce alive, like you've got to take a couple clones, so you toss the skirmisher out there. And that's, I'd imagine, one of the more difficult pieces or parts of playing a list like that.
Yeah, definitely.
I know what's not boring though is watching Wookiees play. Shit happens very quickly, shit dies very quickly on both sides. And Definitely leads to a faster paced game. Richard, do you want to talk about some of your learning experiences and a couple key moments throughout the weekend?
Sure. So one of the lessons I thought I had, and really this PAX confirmed for me, is don't let your opponent have a safe objective, whether that's a back KP, recover box, sabotage point. If you're playing Wookiees, it's not safe. You can afford to divert 1 to 2 units to go after that safe because when you're thinking about it, a back KP, a back sabotage point usually has 1 unit that is protecting it or is interacting with it, whatever it is. If you send a unit of Wookiees at it, 1 unit does not have the firepower to take down a unit of Wookiees before they get to you, especially with heavy cover, almost always, and armor 1, 12 health, they're going to get there. And in a 1v1 in melee, Wookiees are going to win 9 times out of 10 unless you're a force user. So really disrupting your opponent's plan is kind of the highlight and key point of this list. I saw it I played a game of Recover where I chased my opponent's 2 boxes. And so a unit of stormtroopers that was able to recover one of them ended up on his back corner of the board with my unit of melee Wookiees that took the other box chasing them down. In multiple games of sabotage, I was able to get to my opponent's evaporators and start putting work onto them as well. Intercept points, usually you'll keep 1 unit in the back to score it on turns 2, 4, 6. If you send 2 units of melee Wookiees there, first off, they have to divert more resources to be able to score that because your Wookiees are going to be there turn 2. So you're either stalling them from scoring it or threatening to score it yourself, which takes heat off the middle, which allows the rest of your army to do work. Or you're able to bog it down long enough that you have a good chance of scoring it on 6, like I did on several games. So really, it's my apologies. Cats really love when I'm on the computer talking to people. So yeah, just really getting down there. The other thing too, and Chris mentioned this before, and I would say probably at least half my opponents really don't underestimate melee Wookiee's gun. It's ranged 1 to 2. It throws,
it's almost as good as the melee.
Yeah, it throws a black and a white surge to hit. I
Mhm.
think, wow, what was it? It was my final game versus Sam. After the game, he just looked at me. He's like, I underestimated the firepower of melee Wookiees at range. Like, I believe it was turn 2. My melee Wookiees shot and put 3 wounds on Anakin. And that changed the entire tempo of our game and really set up a lot of opportunity that I wasn't quite able to capitalize on. It came down to, the final dice roll or 2 of the game, but it was there. And, the shooting or the melee Wookiees shooting into pikes did work. And even if you're able to just force 3 saves, right? Eventually
Yeah.
the dice give out. And so you're playing a percentages game at that point.
It's a large dice pool. Like if there's still like 4 of them, it's that's 8 dice. Like you can't ignore like those large dice pools. And like there's a lot of them right now in Legion, so that's what wins.
Did you find that you kept them in the shield form more often? Or were they more of they kind of needed the speed too to get in and then you flipped as you started to get close?
So I always deploy in armor mode. Turn 1, depending on what the deployment is, depending on what the conditions are, either the first 2 of 5 are moving up in armor kind of as bait. They're the ones that I want to be shot in order to continue moving forward and, have that armor. Because, again, for anyone who doesn't know, every time you lose a model for the first time in a round, you get to make a speed 1 move. So if you're going to shoot me, I'm getting closer to you. And I'm okay with that. But no, towards the end of round 1, I'm switching into speed mode until I crash into your line. Almost always, there's that asterisk for, situational, but I'm almost always staying in speed mode to get to your line. Once I've crashed into your line, though, I'm switching back into armor mode because the distance moving between units isn't as great anymore. And, if you're just in, let's say, a clone unit with a heavy, right? 5 models. If you have armor 1 and they're rolling 5 dice, they're landing on average, what, 4 with an aim-ish. -1, you're doing at most a Wookiee worth of damage. It really helps you stay alive a lot longer. And against a Force user, most of them have impact 2, impact 3. But if you can negate just one of those Force user dice that you have to roll against, you're buying yourself a whole extra turn in melee tying up that Force user.
Right. If they only get 5 through, even if you take 5 wounds, usually you're not even losing 2 models.
No,
And
you
you just-
lose a model.
Right. You're not going to lose that way if that's how the dice go.
Yeah, the free moves are crazy. It's crazy good.
So one of the questions that I was curious about for both of you guys was we saw a lot of armor at this event. We saw a lot of ATSTs. We saw double saber tanks.
So much Tempest.
A lot of Tempest. How do you guys deal with armor lists? Do you actively try to kill the armor? Do you gut the underside and just play the objectives?
Gut the underside, play the objectives. Honestly, I played Tempest in a round, what was that, 4. I think it was Matt Hall, I believe. He had double ATST, bunch of scouts with snipers. We were playing sabotage, we were playing advanced positions, limited visibility. So we both scouted pretty close to each other. First off, that game was weird because limited visibility didn't come up once. We were in melee. We were in melee first activation of turn 1.
That's wild.
I walked by.
Yeah, I still, that game felt like a fever dream. The 4th game in the day, it was something for both of us. But no, you gotta, at least for Wookiees, you throw the melee Wookiees at the core and you just eat the thumbs alive and you make sure you play an objective that the vehicles cannot participate in. And then once you've taken care of your scoring objectives, those bowcasters are just gonna plink away. Because again, impact 1, pierce 1, you're rolling 8 dice. On average, that's a natural crit and a hit. There's 2 pierce 1. Against most armor targets, you're dealing 2 damage. You can do that twice, and then a 3rd time with Chewbacca, usually dealing at least 1, hopefully 2 if the dice, really go your way. So right off the bat, 6 wounds into an armor target every turn, pretty good way of dealing with any armored entity, really.
I feel like the answer's a little easier. And not to take away anything you just said. Like when it's a white save armor unit versus a red save armor unit, because like Dark Troopers, like the red save tends, like it can like swerve one way, and like that 1 pierce means you do 1 wound. With the white, like with an ATST, like you said, you shoot at range 3, you shoot at range 3 with all the guns with an aim, you probably get 3 crits, right, with the impact and everything, and the natural crits and the aims.
Yes.
And it's probably taking 3 wounds most of the time, sometimes 2, but that's still pretty good. Like you're not going to complain about that. It kind of like, but like Dark Troopers are terrifying. Like when I played against them with Ewoks at Crucible, like I was like, well, I gotta just hope that these axes kill these Dark Troopers for me, because I don't have an answer, because I didn't have lock traps.
And that's fair, but even on statistically average dice, which we play Legion, dice are never statistically average, but theoretically, a unit of shooting Wookiees pulls 1 Dark Trooper model apiece. So the games, and maybe I've just gotten lucky, the games I've played against Dark Troopers, I haven't really feared them because Chewbacca and each of the shooting Wookiees is able to pull a model apiece. You're right. If they do save out, the Pierce 1, you're still dealing 1 wound.
Yeah.
You're still chipping away, and you're looking at what, 107 point unit versus a fully kitted Dark Troopers, like over
points.
200 these days. It's like 212 or something like that. So that's a pretty good value trade, in my opinion.
I was gonna say, you're probably kind of excited to see Dark Troopers on the other side at times, because I know playing the Magna Guard, like I don't even have the Pierce, and I'm still excited to see them because I know they're just rolling 2, rolling 3. And when you have the Pierce on the other side of that, they melt pretty quickly, even if they do save well. They just can't withstand the volume. The sample size is too small. They're gonna throw a blank at some point, and as soon as it does, half the squad disappears.
Don't I know it? Having
Yeah.
played Dark Troopers quite a bit.
Chris,
And then Chris.
armor.
I'm actually glad I didn't have to play against any armored units the whole weekend. I ran into one bus. The bus didn't have a gun. It had reckless driver.
Oof.
Yeah, I don't have a real way to deal with any real armor. I just have to hope that the axes kind of get there if I'm hitting them. I think it's more just play the objective. I have more activations than them. Try to kill all the squishy units and hope that they can't score with their armored units. Maybe I'll get lucky with a log trap with that
Right.
impact 4. But if I'm running against there was a 3 ATST list, I don't know how I really deal with that. Honestly, I think I use the log trap for the squishy units and hope that it actually kills something. So
yeah, if they're taking 3 ATSTs, there's not a lot behind those ATSTs, so you can kill that. You just have to make sure you don't get key positions or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But even key positions is fine because if I kill everything else and it's just ATSTs in those key positions, just hope that the key position is big enough that I can fit some guys
Right.
in.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Come on. I just got lucky on the bus, but even the bus wasn't. It was just kind of more of an ideal target. I didn't have to. I could ignore that bus. So.
I was gonna say, and you do have that, as Richard mentioned, you do have that little bit of impact with Chewbacca, which after the log traps, after a couple crits with Chewie, you're gonna do a few wounds to the bus as it comes towards you. You can probably deal with a single white piece.
Yeah, and Han can do the crits. With Pierce 2 is good.
Probably have the mobility to get to weak points as well to get the bonus impact from that.
Yeah, it's just not ideal. Focusing everything to try to kill one heavy unit. Yeah. Spending that I can't slinger them because my slingers are primitive, so they do no damage to armor. So I could get Wicked in there. Wicked could do some damage.
Yeah. Speaking of Chewbacca, Richard, I've seen people go back and forth between Chewie and the Chieftain. Was Chewie more of a points choice here so that you could fit the bid?
Yeah, that's exactly what he is. That's all he is, really. I wish I had the points for the Chieftain. I think the Chieftain is a better option. Having played with the Chewbacca gun a little bit more in some recent reps, I'm not as convinced of that anymore. The Chieftain's definitely the better melee target and runs with the melee Wookiees. But Chewbacca I used so much as just a objective piece, holding a back intercept point, tapping sabotage points, doing the work that the rest of my units need to be doing something else. I think Chewbacca is just the bargain version and works well enough within the list.
And his gun is essentially whiff proof with the double red. Even if the two white dice don't pop up anything, you still have the 2 red coming through. You've got critical 1. It still has the pierce. So you're always getting something across. Do you guys have any final thoughts about the tournament itself? About how you did or anything that we kind of glossed over as we bounce back and forth?
The meta is shifting again. It does not stop. I was shocked by how much armor there was between the ATSTs, between the saber tanks, weirdly enough. There was quite a few air speeders too. Obviously there was a lot of, Yoda, Anakin, kind of these clone balls and gun lines that are pretty popular right now. But I wasn't ready for the number of and the amount of armor there was across the entire tournament. So it's going to be really interesting as we approach Adepticon and the World Championship to see what shakes out. There's a lot of list variety. If you look at the top 8 lists, there's several different archetypes. There's what, 6?
7. There are 7 different archetypes across the top 8.
We haven't seen that. I mean, we certainly didn't see that at Nova, where 5 out of the top 8 were nearly identical with just a few shifts between them. So I was pleasantly surprised and happy with the health of the meta, I think, as a whole.
Yeah. I was a little surprised by all the armor as well, but it was good to see. I mean, the jarring thing was the amount of like Republic that we got, but like that wasn't really that much of a surprise. Republic super popular always, like you know, it's like the most popular faction, and it's really good right now. So people are going to play it. So it's sort of
I was
you
not
know.
ready for the double saber tank in my first matchup. That's
Yeah.
for sure. He like popped
Yeah.
it down. He's like, it's a double saber, double secret mission dodge castle. And I was like,
I think you
what am
I think you
doing?
asked me in a chat. You were like, "What? Any really cool lists?" And I was like, "There's a double saber tank list." And it was just like that was the one that was like that was submitted. That like at first that was like really like surprising. I'm like, okay. I'm like 2 saber tanks. All right, let's do it.
He did.
Yeah.
Chris, any thoughts about that? Like the meta and such?
Honestly, my thoughts from PAX are mostly just about like my own tournament, like in general. Like last PAX was my first PAX, or my first major tournament in general. So going 1-4 that year, and then this year going 4-2 and coming in top 8 was a nice, pleasant surprise. Like I didn't expect Ewoks to do as well. I had a lot of fun playing them, and was kind of more trying to play something that wasn't as mentally straining as playing my remnant list that I've been playing since ACO. So like other than that, I thought there was a nice variety of playing against. Like I kind of expected to play more like Yoda lists, but I think I only played one Yoda
And I think you
list.
killed Yoda in like turn 2.
Yeah, it was a 30-minute game. He I got a skirmisher in there, put some wounds on Yoda. He then attacked that unit, got them weak, pushed them away, and then moved in and charged to kill them. If he hadn't killed them, like he would have just been in melee with them, but instead he killed them out in the open. So my slingers came wrong and chucked like 7 rocks at
Throw
him.
the rocks at the little green
Yeah.
man.
And then the
Jesus.
game was over.
Oh, God. So before we go, Chris, we have an event coming up soon.
Yes, we
Well,
do.
soon-ish after Christmas. We should talk about that a little bit. So January 6th, we're running another store championship event, but it's I'll let you talk about it because this was your brainchild. I'm just kind of bringing the terrain like usual.
Yes.
I'll let you
Thank
talk
you
about
very
it.
much for
Yeah, of
supplying
course.
the terrain. My local store, Trotta's Hobbies in Barnegat, still had 1 invite left to give out. They bought 2 kits. They still had 1. And then another store that's nearby in Lacey Township called Shipwreck Games had 2 kits, and they hadn't run an event yet. So I asked both shops to see if we could combine kits. So we are doing ideally a 32-man event for 2 invites. And then after the first round, if we get 32 people, all the round 1 losers will be put into a 16-man event for the 3rd invite.
That's cool.
That is very
Yeah.
cool.
So it's like a true redemption bracket.
Yeah.
That's the idea. Hopefully we hit 32 players. That's ideal. Just to sweeten the pot, I have a Strike Me Down kit that I had acquired at Gen Con that I will give away if there's 32 people. I also have a down X-Wing, and there'll probably be additional prizes as we get more people. We have 10 people signed up so far. There's still 3 weeks, a little over 3 weeks away. So
What's the date on it?
January 6th.
I think it's exactly 4 weeks from today.
Yeah.
As we record. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's right after Christmas or right after New Year's. So, you know.
2 weeks before LVO. So people are going to LVO and want to get some practice in, even if you have an invite.
Yep.
Perfect time to get some practice in.
Practice for the gold sprue.
Yeah.
We got the gold sprue coming up at the end of January.
Practice for Worlds.
Practice for Worlds. Worlds is a little over 2 months after that. So, yep. I expect a lot of the people there probably already have invites because that's like the theme that's going, but like use it as practice. Like come play, compete. We'll pass it down to the first, eligible player as always.
Yeah, especially the idea of that losers bracket where it's like if you were hoping to get an invite and you wound up, bad dice or whatever, and you lost that first round, you still kind of have that redemption to hopefully get an invite.
When you propose that to me, I'm like, that's awesome. I really hope we get to like do that. Like I hope we get enough people to do that. And to be clear, it's not being hosted at a store. It's at the Mariners Lodge in Barnegat because there
space issues.
Yeah, that's like the biggest issue with like the store championship like format is that like most stores do not have enough space to accommodate more than like 16, 18, 20 Legion players, and then these events are capped, and then you get drops the night before, and then you end up getting like a 12-man event, which is unfortunate.
And finding a venue was kind of a nightmare.
I
told Nick about this event 2 months ago, and both the venues I had gotten either need to do renovations and they couldn't take it, or they booked the wrong time. Yeah. So.
And Richard, did you want to plug your? Do you do a blog or is it a YouTube series? I apologize. Or is it both?
We do both.
Both. Okay.
Yeah, so if you check out critblock.com, you'll find links to our YouTube channel where we do battle reports. We try to keep it competitive, interesting, funny. Let us know in the comments what you think about that. And then also on the website, we host the Carolina Holo Chronicles, which is headed up by Kentucky Dan, if you're familiar with the name at all. That writes different blogs about his take on the meta. We have a few more writers coming on, so looking to expand that. And I think by the time this episode goes live, we'll have a new blog article up as well. So
awesome. Yeah, I played Dan at Nova. He was definitely a turn 0 he would like back, but it was he's a real good player. I've enjoyed his articles so far. So.
And you guys are one of the best traveling groups on the East Coast. If I remember correctly, a lot of you are like North, South Carolina, correct?
Yes. So we are primarily hosted between North and South Carolina, either in the Triangle area, which is Raleigh, Durham, whatever third city I'm forgetting, and then the Triad area, which is kind of the Winston-Salem area. So we usually have anywhere from 5 to 7 from my local meta that travel with us. And then if you count all of the Carolinas, I think we brought something like 16 people up to Nova from.
I met a lot of guys at Nova. Yep.
Yeah. We're doing our best.
It's awesome. Well, like also like Nova is like basically right in between like where you are here, where we're in Philly and you guys are south. I assume you guys will be invading the Cherokee Open in a few weeks.
Yes,
a few months, but that should be awesome. I should note that like Ryan, I did leapfrog Ryan as the largest East Coast event that me and him run. But he was, the stab. We were proudly sponsored by the Stabcast at PAX Unplugged. So there were, officials. They gave me some all art cards. I passed them out round 1. Everybody, I got myself a cool Dooku Poggle standing orders. I can't wait to use it when when I play Dooku next or Poggle, which will probably be soon. I do want to play Dooku though, because I did manage to, because we only had like 5 Separatist players. I managed to get me a Dooku alt art. So
very nice.
Yeah. I hope that the kit support for judges is better in the future, because unless you like Ewoks, you're out. But it was great. I look forward to next PAX. I've got to send an email in the coming weeks about the improvements I would like to see made, for me to return triumphantly. But
hopefully it goes well.
It probably will.
Triumphant is correct. That's the correct word for sure.
Yeah. PAX, I'm glad that everybody had a good time. It was great.
As long as you stayed in the convention.
Heck, Sunday was a little hectic because they had an issue with there was right next to us was like Hall C. And they decided they needed to break down all of these tables. That's where the MCP tournament was, the Shatterpoint tournament on Saturday, and the Armada World Qualifier that was happening. And basically, so they moved all of the like they moved like the top cut Armada guys like over to like our space, like the tables I had broken down after like at the start of round 6, like I'd broken down all the tables we didn't need because we had like 8 extra tables at that point. So the Armada guys came over and like in the middle of their tournament, they just came over and finished like their tournament, which was fine. It was just like, man, the convention center, like they need to like organize themselves better, because this wasn't like a PAX thing. This was like apparently a convention center thing. Like they needed to like, for some reason they needed to get rid of those tables before the end of the show, and I'm not exactly sure why, but it happened. I was happy I was still home by like 8:30 on Sunday night with everything, so it was good. All of the terrain is still in the garage because I'm lazy and using this cold as an excuse not to do anything.
It's like 63 tomorrow.
I know. It's like
I
warm
can paint
out.
up all my Ewoks.
Yeah, it's good priming weather.
It's in the 70s down here.
That's
Nice. Yeah, good priming weather for sure.
Sure is.
So,
Nick, I've
anything
got an
else?
event real quick. If I
Yeah,
could
go
also
ahead.
throw that out
Do
there.
it.
We Atomic Empire in Durham, North Carolina has a store championship on January 6th as well. 32 player cap. I will be helping out, and if you're interested in seeing that group of people we were just talking about, a lot of them will be there.
Do it. Southern hospitality and all that.
We try our
Bound to be
best.
a good time.
Send us the link. Send us the link for that. We should be able to put it in the description.
Oh, awesome. I can do that.
For Chris as well. Hopefully we can get that out there on both the video and then on the podcast link.
Mhm.
Should be easier to find.
Perfect. Thank you.
Speaking of, don't forget, support us on Patreon. We are part of the Fifth Trooper Network, and we would love your support. I know they just sent out like quarterly rewards for everybody, some cool stuff headed to all the supporters' way.
Yesterday, I think, actually.
I think so. Yeah. If Jay is to be believed, which probably.
No comment.
But I think that wraps up our show.
Thank you guys very much for joining us, taking the time out of your Saturday here.
Absolutely.
Hopefully
you
we
for
see you
having
guys at Adepticon in March, and hopefully for 8+ rounds. Can be on day 3.
We'll see.
I'm gonna make my own redemption bracket.
Blackjack and hookers.
Nick just rents another hall.
I just rent another hall.
We'll have our own worlds.
We'll have our own worlds with Blackjack and Hooker and Nick's terrain.
Have a wonderful day, everybody.